Hi there, this is James Mading. I'm going to try to explain some of the issues I'm having with the infrastructure modeler program to see if we can come up with a workflow. And what I'm dealing with here is just basically grading. So I'd like to show existing ground an infrastructure modeler with, say, an aerial photo draped on it. And the proposed grading I'd like to show with maybe a scan of the actual 2D base file or some other form of coloring to make it look like proposed grading. Okay, the first thing is to get just the terrain looking decent. So I'm in Civil 3D, and you can see the topo here. The brown on the outside is existing, and the blue on the inside is the proposed. And let me turn off the triangles so you can see, for the proposed, so you can see the line work. The existing, in this case, is actually data referenced in. So the line work for that is in another file. And but the process is the same. I'm going in and making an SDF of the line work for each, the existing and the proposed. And I'll show that brought into AIM. And we can take a look. But anyway, let me turn off the triangles for this. So PA1 rough grading is the one in the middle here. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the triangles. So what we've got in here is a whole bunch of 3D break lines. And if I orbit this thing, you can see all these lines in here, and they're actually quite detailed. This is a actually rough grading model, but all the curves and everything are generated off of our tools, which do very intended to be fine level of detail. So, all right. So what I did was I isolated the layers that had those on there. For the existing, exported that as an SDF. I isolated the ones for proposed, exported that as an SDF. So let me cut over to AIM and show how that imports. Oh, notice one thing I wanted to explain on here. Get back to plan view. Of course, the boundary along the proposed is not what I would call a convex edge. It's got concave areas that cut in like this. And in the end, what I'm seeing is it's triangulating across these and wiping out the existing in between. And I don't quite understand why it's doing that, because it seems, I can't tell if it's doing a clip or a merge, and that's kind of one of the odd things going on. So let me kick over to AIM here. Okay, so I brought in the SDF for the existing. You can see it over here in the Explorer, just to show you the configuration on it. There it goes. It's vector, it's set to terrain. I'm using California State Plane Zone 6, and source is set like this. It's basically defaults, and I don't need to refresh it because it's already gone. And so comes in actually quite nicely. One of the things that is a little tricky is like areas like this. It's tinning across here, and I don't really want it to do that. And I don't have a square project boundary, so I guess I could do that by, I don't know, supplementing break lines or something at a very neutral elevation to try to make kind of a flat plane around the edge. But in general, it's not really a common assumption that our sites are rectangular. I guess you could supplement it with stuff from a DEM file or something with USGS topo, but in this case we're going off of an aerial topo that was flown. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to bring in the SDF file for the rough grading for the middle portion, just that. I'm not going to confuse things by the, if I go back to AutoCAD, there's these areas over here that are like islands, and what happens in between here. I'm not even going to deal with that. I'm just going to deal with this blob in the middle here. Okay, so I'll go over here. Proposals. I made an RG proposal here, so I'm going to add my SDF, and I have it called RG middle. I actually have an SDF of the boundary of that too, which I don't know if we'll figure out how to use to make it, to set a clipping limit, but it sounds like it's kind of not going to be, it's not going to come into play. Okay, so now I got to come in here and configure it. And I didn't pause it there, so that was pretty quick that it brought that in. That's very good performance compared to LandXML and some other options I've been trying. So this is terrain, set to California State Plane. Incidentally, it's very nice that you guys made a quick list there. I struggle in other programs where I got to constantly re-look it up or remember the name, so that's a really nice feature. Okay, so source set to default. Don't drape. I don't think that's relevant in this case, but so I'll let this thing refresh, and I'm gonna let it kind of run in real time so you can get a feel for the time that this is going. So it's kind of showing the tiles that it generates. It seems to do it kind of differently each time too, so I haven't quite figured out, what that means, but you'll see kind of some funny edges along the bottom. See how it clips it into tiles and then these little skirts stick down. I would like advice on how to deal with that. It seems to me like the other examples that I've seen don't have that, so I'm kind of wondering what that is. So let's start by looking at this area here. So this hillside, which comes down here, which should be on existing, is not touched by the proposed grading. If we go back to AutoCAD and look at that area, it's right here. See if I can rotate that in 3D a bit. Okay, so the existing is here, right here, this hillside, and the proposed comes down like that. Now I do have a little bit of proposed sticking here, and what the model seems to be doing is straight lining the 10 lines from here to here. And that seems odd to me because in the existing I have all kinds of line work in here that defines this. So you would think it would kind of connect the dots around the outside edge of your line work and form a boundary and go like this, but it's not doing that. It's forming the convex hull, which is performance-wise, I don't see why that's done. Figuring out a shrink wrap boundary on a set of line work, it isn't that hard compared to finding they call that the convex hull or the outside boundary. It's not that much difference in terms of performance, but so that's going on here. That's an obvious issue. Same deal here. It's wiping out the existing in the stream bed here, when really my entities end along the edge. So I'd like to figure out how to not have it do that. And I have a feeling that the answer is going to be you have to prepare your line work ahead of time for this kind of thing. You can't expect it to do the clipping properly. Anyway, okay, so, and then that happens all over the place. It's happening all along the edges, and over here it's happening where it's wiping that out. It's very consistent. I think it's kind of clear what's going on once you see it. Okay, another odd thing though is look in this quarter here. I'm not getting, see how my proposed stuff is just completely ignored? That's got to be a bug in the program. And this thing is taking up a fair amount of memory. If I go over to Task Manager here, well, it's actually right now it's not taking up barely anything compared to when I pull in a LandXML file. The thing goes up to like 4 gigs of RAM, and I can't. But the other interesting thing is when I pull into LandXML, and I can't do that on this video because it takes too long, I can actually it applies boundaries to the surfaces. So when I pull it in, it shows this middle portion here for the proposed, and it'll show the portion over here and portion over here with like blue space in between if I just bring in the LandXML. So somehow it's maintaining separate sets of stuff as defined by that LandXML, but it's still not handling the concave areas. So what I'm trying to figure out, like I say, is how to get this final picture into here, and because I want to sometimes change this alternative in the middle here, and also I want to apply a different image to it. So it kind of made sense that I would keep the surfaces separate, or as separate data sources. And then as I was expecting the ability to maybe drape two different surfaces on, and or maybe like drape an existing over the whole thing, and then come in with another image that would be clipped to some shape, and that would control that, and it would sort of sit on top of the existing surface and block it out, so you would see the proposed. So hopefully this is a little bit clearer. I'm amazed at the speed of this. It's lovely. I mean, once you bring it in, it just rotates around so fast. And I've done this with the DWF. I've done 3D DWFs of this stuff, and that's actually kind of a nice simple process too. But it doesn't have the power of certain things that this program has. In particular, the image draping. That's a big deal. So, if anybody needs to give me a call on this or email, do so anytime, and hopefully this helped. Thanks.